When it comes to modding our handheld consoles, we often get caught up in some of the more popular and visually stimulating mods such as a beautifully backlit screen or a custom shell to spice up these older consoles. However, with these mods, we often overlook some of the unwanted impacts that they can cause. Popular IPS kits and flash cards increase the power draw on the original console's hardware that they weren't designed for. This often leads to audible noise coming from the console's speakers. But I think we have a solution. Let's check it out. Hey everyone, how's it going? My name is Tito and welcome to another episode of Retro Renew. Today we're going to be taking a look at an array of products from HELDER that will help our modded Game Boy Advance and Game Boy Advance SP consoles better handle the increased power draw caused by popular mods such as an IPS screen and flash carts. Because these consoles weren't originally designed for these mods, they can cause some unwanted side effects. These side effects typically manifest as unwanted audible noise, such as the infamous hum and hiss sounds that we often hear from these modded consoles. If you're familiar with the website SudoMod, then I'm sure you've heard of HELDER. HELDER helped to create and design the MintyPi and other really unique mods that utilize the Raspberry Pi single board computer module. However, he now took his talents and applied them to Nintendo handhelds. So these mods were kindly sent my way by HELDER free of charge. This is not a sponsored video, and as always, I'll be providing my own opinions and thoughts regarding these products. As usual, I'll start off by briefly going over each item, then I'll show you how to install them, and lastly, I'll do some before and after comparisons, go over the pros and cons, and of course, provide you with my overall thoughts. So let's begin with all the mods that HELDER sent over for the original Game Boy Advance AGB. The first thing we have is the recap kit. This helps to clean and condition the power coming into the Game Boy Advance unit from the battery. These are high quality tantalum capacitors which will replace the old worn out electrolytics. These caps have the proper capacitance to handle mods like the IPS kit to smooth out the voltage and amperage as well as filter out high frequency noise. These caps will clean the majority of the power coming into the system. The next mod will further clean and condition power within the console. This is the GBA power cleaner. It helps to reduce the loud hiss caused by inadequate filtering on the power rails going to the CPU. In addition, it also filters out low frequency noise. Its unique flat design will help make this a breeze to install. And lastly, the cherry on top, we have the Flex GBA Amp. This mod again filters power going into the audio amp, further cleaning the power and removing unwanted hum. The one I have here is a pre-production unit. Final production units will incorporate an EMI shield which will further reduce noise and any electronic interference and help produce a clean audio signal. And on top of that, it will amplify the audio and greatly increase the volume output from the stock speaker. Now another product that HELDER sent over is a new USB-C rechargeable lithium polymer battery. Now what makes this unique is that it's a totally custom designed and manufactured cell. It's not a rebranded off-the-shelf battery that we're used to seeing. This one is rated at 1300 mAh. While I cannot confirm this myself, the 1300 mAh rating is said to be conservative and often tests higher than the stated rating. Another nice feature is that its design mainly consists of passive components, meaning that the battery does not self-discharge. If put in storage, the battery will remain charged for quite a long time. Now moving on to the SP, we have some equally exciting mods. This is the GBA SP Power Cleaner. The cool thing about this mod is that it combines the recap kit and the clean power mod into a single flex PCB. So all the benefits that I mentioned for the AGB recap kit and power cleaner is incorporated on this single mod. Now please note we are not adding an audio amp to the SP, so the volume will remain the same, but we should have cleaner audio. And the last item is this custom designed and manufactured LiPo battery. Now this is rated at 800 mAh. As you know, the original SP battery is rated at 600, So this is a 33% improvement. And if you're interested, you can check out a great video from Macho that actually validates the 800 mAh rating of this battery. In fact, this battery is also conservatively rated, and Macho's finding is that this battery actually exhibits a higher capacity than the stated 800 mAh. So this is definitely a great replacement if you're in the market for one. Now, the last thing that HELDER sent over are some replacement power switches for the GBA, the GBA SP, and the Game Boy Color. As you may know, getting replacements for some of these switches can be somewhat difficult. So these are great alternatives for those of you who need to replace a damaged switch. I won't be demonstrating the installation of these in the video, but if it's something you would like to see in the future, let me know in the comments below. Great, so those are all the awesome things that HELDER sent over, and now let's go ahead and get these installed into these consoles. First, let's start with the original Game Boy Advance, since we're going to be doing quite a bit of work to it. We need to remove the motherboard, so depending on the mods you've done, your disassembly may be different from mine. This GBA just has an IPS mod. With the motherboard out, the first mod we'll be doing is the recap. We'll be removing these 4 electrolytic capacitors. Now, the method I use to remove these caps may not be popular with some, but I've removed hundreds of capacitors this way and never had an issue, so remove them using your method of choice. What I do is I cut the aluminum capacitor near the base, parallel to the legs, as to minimize stress being put on the legs. After the top has been cut, simply remove the remaining piece. Then snip the 2 leads as close to the base as possible. And then you can easily lift the plastic base. And this is what it should look like. Do this for the other 3 caps. Now remove the remaining legs from the pads using a soldering iron. Use solder wick to clean the pads of any old solder. And finally, some IPA to clean the surfaces. And you should be left with some fresh looking solder pads. Now add some flux to the pads. Position the tantalum capacitor paying attention to the polarity. Then, while holding the caps in position, tack one of the legs in place. Then solder the other side, and then add more solder to the other leg. Repeat this on all of the other capacitors. Remember, pay attention to the polarity. Clean up your work area with some IPA. And this is what it should look like. Next, desolder the speaker for when we install the amp a little bit later. And now position the GBA Power Flex PCB. It should align like so. Drop some flux and begin to solder the designated points. It helps to sometimes hold the PCB flat against the motherboard. Here you can see the 3 components we soldered to. There are 6 solder connections in total. And now let's install the amp. Get it into position with the top left solder point aligned with the S1 pin. Then begin soldering the 3 designated points. And this is the final result. Now we just need to solder the speaker back to the 2 solder pads on the Amp Flex PCB as shown. Now all that's left is to put everything back together. Since I'm using a pre-modded Retro 6 shell, HELDER's battery will fit without any issue. Put in the left side first and then push it in. Please note it's a pretty tight fit. Alright, this original GBA is all set. Now let's move our attention to the SP. Modding this will be slightly simpler since we're not installing an amp, and because this incorporates the recap kit and the power cleaner into a single flex PCB. All you need to do is remove the rear shell. There is no need for a full teardown, which is absolutely fantastic. Position the SP power cleaner by aligning the lowermost solder point with the top leg of the power switch. Then solder all the necessary connection points, and this is what it should look like. 3 components with a total of 5 solder points. And now reinstall the rear shell cover. It's pretty cool that you can see the mod through the shell. Anyway, the last thing we need to do is put in this 800 mAh battery. First and foremost, I have to say that this was a straightforward and well-designed mod. All solder points on the Flex PCBs align precisely with their necessary corresponding components. Now, these kits are different from most mods we've done on this channel because their benefits aren't immediately noticeable. This isn't a fancy IPS screen or a beautiful translucent shell. With the exception of the audio amp, I found most of these mods to be just slightly noticeable. Now, that is not to say that these aren't good. That is far from what I'm saying. I am by no means an audiophile, and I'm sure there are those who can really hear the difference. To me, these mods give me more peace of mind. I always knew in the back of my head that these consoles weren't designed to have a lot of the really cool mods that I've done. These power cleaning mods in effect address that concern. Knowing that I've upgraded the power components to better handle these power-hungry mods makes me feel better. So what I want to do next is show you some side-by-side comparisons with other consoles that don't have these power filtering mods to see if we can hear a difference. Let's first start with the AGB Game Boy Advance, and I want to first demonstrate the amp and show you how loud it actually gets. Yeah, so that's an absolute night and day difference. It gets really loud. I don't think I'll turn it up all the way, cause it's somewhat deafening. But I am glad to have the additional volume headroom for when I'm playing in noisier environments. Now let's see how much clearer the audio is. And this is where things get a little difficult for me to discern. Now because I have the amp installed, I'm going to do my best to try and match the volume to the console before I modded it, so we can attempt to focus on audio clarity. So not sure if my mic was able to pick up the difference, but I have to say for me personally, it was a bit hard to tell. Of course, again, I don't have the best ears. Now HELDER said that a good place to test how clear the audio is to use the save room in Castlevania Aria of Sorrow. The reason for this is that there is no background music, which allows us to hear any subtle noise. Let's hope my mic can pick up the difference. So I'm going to be honest, but again, I couldn't hear too much of a difference. I think the audiophiles will be able to appreciate it more than I'm able to. Now, unfortunately, you may have noticed I used a different GBA for that test. I should have recorded more audio samples from the unmodified GBA and SP. I fortunately have another IPS modded SP, but for the Game Boy Advance, I'm using an AGS 101 modded unit. It also has an aftermarket LiPo battery, which should make it a suitable unit to compare. But again, this really isn't an apples to apples comparison, and I apologize for that. Okay, let's do the same test, but on the SP. Now remember, the SP has all the same mods as the GBA, except for the audio amp. Let's start with the opening for Metroid Zero Mission. Now let's do the save room in Castlevania. This is where I could actually hear a difference. The SP with the Power Cleaner Flex PCB did seem to have an overall cleaner sound. I could definitely hear the difference in the noise when I held each unit against my ear. So I tried to capture the audio of these units as best as I could through the equipment that I have. The differences were subtle enough that, at least for me, it was somewhat difficult to discern. Which brings me to the pros and cons. Starting with the pros, all these mods were extremely simple to install. The flex PCBs for each of the mods were precisely and elegantly designed, making the installation simple and straightforward. Also, the low-profile design of these mods ensure that there are no fitment issues at all, and when installed, they actually look really cool. Another pro is that I have peace of mind knowing that these consoles now have the proper filtering in place to handle the additional power draw that many of the popular mods require. And the last pro, in my opinion, is the price. All these mods are extremely competitively priced given their excellent design. The GBA Flex Amp is $10, the GBA Power Cleaner is $5, the recap kit for the Game Boy Advance is $10, and the high capacity battery runs you $25. As for the SP, the Power Cleaner is $10, and the high capacity 800 mAh battery is $10 as well. So again, in my opinion, I think these are fairly well priced for what you're getting. And now, onto the cons. And really, the only con I have is that I wish the improvements were a little more noticeable. I do have to caveat that I don't have the best ears, so hopefully my comparisons earlier in the video will be helpful to some of you with a more keen ear. So while these mods aren't the most glamorous when it comes to tricking out your Game Boy Advance console, I do believe that the well thought out design, ease of installation, and peace of mind that you get when installed make them worth it in the end. But I'm actually more curious about what you guys think. How do you feel about these power filtering mods, and will any of you be getting these for your tricked out Game Boy Advance consoles? As always, I'm eager to read about what y'all think, and I always try to reply to all your comments, so definitely leave me one below. Again, I'd like to thank HELDER for sending these mods my way. When you get a chance, definitely check out his store. I'll have a link to it in the description below. I hope you did enjoy this video. If you did, please give it a like and consider subscribing to the channel. You can find me on Facebook and Instagram at Macho Nacho Productions. I release content every Thursday, so be sure to turn on notifications. And as always, see you next time.